Early morning, 28 December 2014. Amma and Gong Gong went to pick up Daddy and Mei-Mei from the airport. I was getting ready for Kung Fu. We got into the car. Mummy told me that Daddy and Mei-Mei haven't arrived. The plane was late. Two things could have happened to the plane. One, it could have been taken over by some bad guys. Two, it could have crashed.
The rest is history. In the 14 years that Chiman and I were together, he never once left me wondering where he was or what he was doing. Luca and I lost half our family. I was lost, and I was a total mess. I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw an image that looked like me, but I had no idea who the person was. I couldn't recognize myself physically. I'd lost about 7 kilos or more. For a good 6 months after the accident, I moved my paces on the chessboard of life only with uncertainty. I lost all self-confidence, of course. I couldn't get out of bed. I would just cry. But I knew one thing. I knew that crying alone wasn't going to take me anywhere, and it certainly wasn't going to change anything. I knew I had to be a sane individual to myself and then a mother to Luca. The vision was and still remains clear to me. I will build a positive life for Luca and I'm determined to make mojitos of the lemons I've been dealt. I defined a purpose to myself, a purpose to Luca, to friends and family, and to Chiman's employers and colleagues. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how long it would take. And I certainly didn't know what the journey was going to look like. I have no words to describe the loss, except it left a deep hole. A very deep hole. Chiman's body was only found in February, 6 weeks after the accident. These 6 weeks certainly felt like an eternity. Zoe's body was never found, and I had to find a way to keep my sanity. I started seeing my psychiatrist 3 weeks after the accident. For 18 months, I saw her once a week, and now I still see her once a month. Without Dr. Pam, emotionally and psychologically, I certainly wouldn't be psychologically and emotionally where I am today. The accident catapulted me 20 years back to the starting point of my adult life. I've had to redefine myself, rebuild my career, financially provide for Luca and I, be both mother and father to him, establish a new normal, create new traditions in our new household for two. Thinking through the journey and doing a little bit of research of how one defines life purpose, the questions came to the fore. Who am I? What do I do? Who do I do it for? What do they want or need? And what do they get out of it? Let's look at these through my interaction with 3 distinct groups, with family, with friends, and through work. With family, We all know that family relationships are complex. Mine is no different. Nonetheless, they have been the pillars of support to Luca and I. Never doubt your family to do so. Interaction with friends. Those closest and dearest to me know me well, and they know that I'm terrible at asking for help. And because of this, they've either stepped in or stepped forward. From taking over and delivering the most beautiful and elegant memorial service for Chiman and Zoe, to coming around now weekly to help Luca with his homework. They take him to football and they take him to touch rugby, and friends take Luca for weeks on end during his school holidays. Chiman and I invested in our friendships. Those closest to him trusted him with their lives. In fact, this was one of many qualities about him I fell in love with. We have old and dear friends of 25 years and more. Luca now builds his friendship with these friends. It's extremely important. And my aim is, of course, should anything happen to me, that Luca will never be alone and he would never feel helpless. Recalling the questions of how one defines life purpose, who I am, what I do, who do I do it for, what do they want, what do they get out of it. These work both ways. Let your friends step in and help. They too are enveloped in grief and sadness. I very quickly realized that the more I kept silent, the more they would worry. The more I distanced myself, the more they cried. Allowing them to step in and helping is an extremely powerful way of assisting them and helping them grieve and heal. The act of contributing and playing a role to rebuild lives is extremely cathartic. And you know what? It's okay to feel vulnerable. The grace of receiving, allowing vulnerability to show, is a most humbling experience. But beyond that, it's a simple and beautiful way of assisting those closest to us to heal. Interaction with corporate life. My work at the museum was really the turning point of my recovery. What did it do for me personally? Remember that I started with zero self-confidence. The routine of going back to work re-established structure in my life. To avoid operating in a semi-autopilot mode, I chose a totally new environment. Different colleagues, different mindset, different stakeholders, different demands requiring thinking out of the box. Learning new content, creating new solutions. Everything I had done in my prior career of 15 years gave me all the right ammunition for these new challenges. Professional success and achievements played a big role in rebuilding my confidence. I know I still had it, and clearly the proof was in the pudding. Raising new funds and revenue to enhance art and culture is an extremely important cause. The Singapore government supported me immediately after the accident, and they brought my husband's body home. For these, I am eternally grateful. I had a national debt to pay, and I did it. Chiman and I have always been competitive. He was my worst critic, and I, in turn, certainly kept him on his toes. We often fought about who was actually going to die first. I know it sounds ridiculous. I would say, of course I'm dying first. I'm not staying behind to clean up this mess. And Chiman would say, no babe, I'm dying first. you will just pick up the pieces and move on. If you die first, I would have no idea what to do without you. At the funeral, my final parting words to Chiman were, Chiman, you win, but you cheated. You were never meant to have won this way.
We remember Daddy by the jokes he used to say and do. We remember Zoe by reading her favorite books at bedtime. We celebrate Daddy's birthday by singing him a happy birthday song. We remember Zoe by decorating her a birthday cake with pink and purple Smarties on them. Pink was her favorite color. She would only eat the pink and purple Smarties. Daddy and Mei-Mei are always with us. They are always in our hearts.
I'd like to share a short excerpt from a poem by Henry Scott Holland, which perfectly encapsulates how Luca and I and our closest friends keep Chiman and Zoe very, very close to our hearts. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you, and the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. We'd like to close today with photos of Luca and I taken in the last 2.5 years. We welcome you to continue to progress with us through our Facebook page, Remembering Chiman and Zoe. For now, this young man, this love of my life, is proof of how far we've come.